Nós vamos agora convidar para apresentar o case study de várias empresas que buscaram as soluções da Symantec para a otimização de seus negócios, o Manager Endpoint Management and Mobility da Symantec, Dunn. Vamos recebê-lo, por favor?
As he said, my name is Dunn. I'm from Symantec. I am from the United States, so I apologize. This is my first time to Brazil. I love your country. I've had a lot of fun, and I've learned a lot while I've been here, but I have not learned Portuguese. So I'll save that for next time. Symantec is focused on the relentless protection of people and information. That's our job. When people ask me what I do, that's what I tell them. You as retailers are focused on selling and providing goods and services to people, obviously. But to do that, you need to be able to protect their information and protect your information as well. Now, Symantec partners in Brazil, as you can see, with some of the largest retailers that are out there. Many of you that are in here are Symantec customers of some sort. And for those of you that aren't, we'd like to talk later and have you become Symantec customers. So this is in Brazil. These are some of the brands that are represented and that we partner with in Brazil. And where I'm from, these are some of the brands and projects and partnerships that we have in the in North America as well. We focus, most of these I've worked with to reduce costs as they're deploying applications, as they're securing their information. In a lot of ways, though, they're moving beyond just trying to reduce costs, and they're moving towards trying to change the experience that their customers have and that their partners, their associates have as well. They want to change the way they do business. But first, we want to focus on a few things that made sense. And I'll give you a few use cases from customers that I've worked with that will apply here as well. One of the focuses whenever you're trying to manage a complex retail environment is to standardize. In order to standardize on a specific operating system, on a specific platform that you want to use to manage the information that you have to be able to cover all of those platforms. So obviously that begins with managing the back end, around managing Windows, managing Linux, various versions of that, Unix, Apple, and what have you. So Symantec offers a broad range of support for those platforms on the back end. On the client side, I don't know, from what I understand, there's a move in the United States, and I think you guys are ahead of us here, to move away from, on the point of sale systems, in a lot of cases, away from Windows, because it's more cost effective, in some ways more stable, to move to a Unix or Linux platform on your point of sale systems. Well, that means you still have to secure and manage those platforms just like you would have to manage a Windows environment. The other thing you have to do is you have to be able to integrate the coverage for this with your service desk. I'll give you an example. I have a retailer large retailer. They have about 40,000 nodes or so, and they were having issues and problems with hard drive failures. And as you know, if a hard drive fails, that's a big problem, because then my point of sale system is down. I can't take money. I can't process a transaction. And so one of the things they began doing was they wanted the built-in diagnostics of a hard drive will alert the operating system when it thinks it's about to fail. And so one of the things that Symantec did was we made a policy so that if there was a problem with a hard drive being detected, that we would proactively let the help desk and service desk know about that, let them know where the device is, who the last person that logged onto the device was, and what the error was, and what the hard drive type is that's out there, so that it could send a technician, a very low-cost technician, because he didn't have to diagnose anything. All he was doing was replacing a hard drive and then booting it up, and it has a new image on it. That's one way that integration between the management and security side of things and the service desk side of things makes a difference for customers so that they can proactively manage rather than just reacting to what's happening. That's one example that we use. Another example around IT asset management, had a retailer that came to us and said, we believe we have around 18 to 20,000 nodes, and we want to do license compliance. These are the applications we care about, and how are we going to begin to manage those? How are we going to track those? Because we can't secure something if we don't know that it exists on our network. And so one of the things we went in is, during our project, we discovered they didn't have 18 to 20,000 nodes. They actually had 24,455 nodes. They were under licensed on all their software. They didn't know where any of these things were. And so we went through a process of helping them understand not only that they had more assets than they realized, but also went through a process of identifying from a software perspective, do you really need all the software that's on all of these devices? We got to a place where we were managing and metering how they were using the software on all of their devices. And what they determined was they had several pieces of software on all 24,000 machines that they were under licensed for, and over the course of 90 days, they realized that only about 1,000 of those actually used the piece of software that they were paying maintenance on. So they were able to save the money from the project, from most of the project, just by eliminating the software that was out there that they were no longer using. They were also able to secure another 4,500 nodes that they didn't realize they existed, and they were able to reduce the risk of a software audit to come in from Microsoft or Adobe or any one of the other vendors that are out there that could have come in, done an audit, and hit them with large penalties because they were under licensed. So that's one way to do it, and that's more of a device-centric model. Now, one of the reasons that I'm here is not just to talk about device-centric. We've probably, in the retail space especially, we've been doing device-centric management and device-centric security for a long time, and it's worked well. If we have a saying in the United States, if it isn't broken, why fix it? Don't change something if it's working. So one of the things that we are moving from now is, instead of going device-centric, we're going to more of a workspace management standard. So you have your operating system, your applications, the profiles that manage those applications, and then the data that's associated with those applications. Now, instead of having that be only reserved for something that's used only for, I'm sorry for losing my train of thought here. Instead of using that only for devices, we focus on the user instead. So if I'm a user and I have, say, Windows XP on a system, Windows 7 on a system, anything that's out there, I can make sure that I have, as I log in to that system, I get the applications that are required for my job. So if I'm a point-of-sale worker and I log into a point-of-sale system, I get the applications that are designed for someone with my role. If I'm a manager and I log into that same system, I get the applications that are relevant to my job function. And then when I log off, those applications disappear for the next person who logs in. It's a way of making sure that the user has what they need, when they need it, where they need it, wherever that may be. As well, there can be profiles, things like security policies, things of that nature that are applied down, and data and information that can be applied as well. So the point is, we're moving from a device-centric world into a user-centric world. An example of this is a retail, JCPenney in the United States. Just worked with them over the last quarter or so to work with them on just this project. They were tired of managing all of their devices and managing all the information for just those devices and not knowing where the information was going. So they introduced something called data loss prevention to make sure that the information that was on the devices that belonged to the corporate network stayed there. And that if they tried to take them off, that we were alerted and a service desk ticket was called. They also wanted to make sure the applications that are designed for that specific, for those specific job functions were provided not over a long time. This is a great point. In JCPenney's cases, some of their warehouses are located in very remote places with very poor bandwidth. In the case of, for instance, Monsanto, the same thing. They're using a similar model where they have applications and infrastructure that's in remote farming locations from North America all the way to Africa. And they have to manage that application. They have to manage the distribution of applications, but have to make sure that they can be productive in a short amount of time. So with this technology and with the way Symantec approaches it, if there's an icon on a desktop, because I have the right to have that specific application, I open that application, and within seconds, even though the entire package isn't there, I can still begin to be productive because it's streaming the app down. The technology doesn't matter as much as the use case matters. So another, I don't know if, are we familiar with the concept of a bring your own device, where you have some of your employees wanting to bring their devices and be productive at work with that device? If that's you, if you're familiar with that, then if you could raise your hand for me. So otherwise, I'll explain it a little bit more. Or if that's, all right, I'll explain it a little bit more. So a lot of companies today are focused not just on managing the devices that the company owns, but they realize that for the younger workers specifically, the younger workers want to bring their own device into the corporation. It could be a smartphone, an iPad, whatever that, an iPad or an Android tablet. It could be anything that they want to be able to bring in and be productive. They want to have access to corporate resources, to custom applications, and be able to work with those applications on their device. At the same time, you have corporations who are trying to do the same thing with their own devices. So there's traditional mobile device management, which makes sense, managing a device that you own today. These will be the devices that you bring onto a sales floor to do inventory, onto a sales floor to take orders, et cetera. But there's a lot of companies that are moving from the current state where you have managed devices with mobile device management, and they're company-owned, but where they really want to go is where there's an app-centric approach where we have unmanaged devices, where the company doesn't manage the device, and personally owned devices. I have a retail customer who wants to begin to allow their users, their employees, to be able to bring their devices to work and even be able to look up their schedules to see when they work next week off of their device, not through some web portal, but because the schedule's actually been pushed down, content is pushed down to their device. Well, that's corporate information. They also want to be able to do transactions from that same device. The ROI for this is easy because if an employee brings their own device, is paying for their own data, then the corporation isn't paying for that. The company's not paying for that. The employee is already paying for it. And they look at it as a benefit because they're able to bring their own device to the company and be able to work with that. The problem that exists is now we have the mixing of personal data and applications and corporate data and applications. That's a problem. Well, Symantec has solved that by moving through a process where instead of having a standard device or a pool of approved devices to choose from, we're moving through a bring your own device strategy where the company, in some cases, the company controls the personal device. That's kind of scary. You don't want to be in full control of a personally owned device. That is a privately held device. You don't want to have the ability to wipe that information and have them lose personal information, but you do want them to be productive with it, which is why you see companies moving to secure the relevant applications and information only. And one of the ways we do that is with a product called Nucona. And that's a relatively new product from Symantec. And the problem that it solves is easily, which I should ask, is anyone using custom applications, or are your businesses asking for custom applications for your employees to make them more productive? Are you guys, is that something you're doing very much of today? I see a couple of nods of head, and so I'll continue a little bit about that. One of the things that if in growing and bringing tablets, one of the use cases that's out there for this is being able to, and you may have this situation, have a tablet so that a customer comes to your store, to your physical store. Maybe they're not comfortable purchasing something online. Maybe they just don't want to ship it they don't want to carry it from their store, from your store to their building, to their apartment. But they want to order it and they want to see it. So you may have it on hand or you may not have it on hand. What if you could have a device where you can help process that order securely by managing where that information is and making sure that that information that's in that device, even if it's personally owned, does not mix with the rest of the information. And I'll quickly go through that. One of the ways that that works is if you have an Android device or an Apple device, you're able to wrap that application, wrap that information, even if it's a web application, and you're able to wrap it into an isolated layer within the device. This is actually very simple to use. It doesn't require you recoding the device and is a way to secure applications that you may be using to make your workforce more productive without you having to write a really secure application itself. You can wrap it in a security layer at that point. I'll kind of move through this. You can do the same thing with web applications. And the point is this. At the end of the day, you can have a device where you have personal data and corporate data. They're on the same device, but they never touch each other. You can't take personal data and put it into the corporate environment, and you can't take corporate environment and take it out and put it into the personal environment. By doing this, we secure and hopefully make your workforce more productive as they're working in their retail spaces, as they're working with customers, so they have access to what they have access to and don't have access to the things which may expose you to risk that you don't need. I appreciate the time today. I want to ask my friend Wes to come up and wrap this up for us. Thank you very much for the time. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions, I'll just say this is the man to talk to because he knows, he speaks the language, and B, he has my card, so he can get the answers for us. Thank you very much.
Pessoal, obrigado por participar. Agora eu tenho certeza que vai ser muito mais agradável. A Melissa, por favor, Melissa, levanta. Ela é a pessoa responsável dentro da Symantec pelo mercado de varejo, né? Então, ela está aqui no evento até o final. A gente vai sortear às 2 horas o iPad e todos os outros brindes, mas é importante que vocês tenham ela como a pessoa responsável. A ideia da nossa apresentação hoje era deixar muito claro para vocês o conhecimento que a gente tem do mercado de varejo, né? Tanto aqui no Brasil como fora. Então, a gente trouxe o Daniel porque ele está hoje lidando com assuntos muito high level lá fora, assuntos de alta tecnologia, e a gente acha que é nossa obrigação também trazer para vocês o que está acontecendo lá fora, porque a gente sabe que é isso que vai ser implementado aqui num futuro próximo. Então, queria, de novo, agradecer vocês e deixar o nosso stand da Symantec aberto para que vocês venham conversar com a gente a hora que vocês quiserem. Tá bom? Obrigado aí pela presença.